Attorney General Wayne Stenehjem. Wayne, welcome to the program. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, good to be with you.
Busy day. So I had to get caught up on emails and everything there. How's the campaign going?
It's going very well. We're just starting on the front end of the convention process, and that's a process where we have to go out and visit, or get to go out and visit 47 legislative districts that are having their conventions, and they will be selecting delegates who will come to the Republican convention in Fargo, April 2nd and 3rd, and select the candidates for governor and all the other offices that will be on the ballot. It's something I've done many years, of course, traveling all around, and I enjoy doing it, and it's our opportunity to visit with people who are party activists and who are heavily involved in the party process.
Do you, all the candidates obviously in Fargo. Fargo had their, all the Fargo districts, like a laundry list of districts, because Fargo has so many of them, but big convention there. You, of course, were on hand. Your newest opponent, Fargo businessman Doug Burgum, of course, was in attendance. I understand Representative Rick Becker was there. Sort of Burgum's backyard, though. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, you've got with Mr. Burgum in the race, probably changed the, it's a three-way race now, changed his dynamics a little bit. How are you feeling about it?
It does, and of course, Doug is well known and well liked in Fargo. But as it turns out, over the years, I have run 6 or 5 statewide campaigns now, and have done very well. When I attended the convention and I walked in, and there were hundreds of people there, but I looked around and realized I know personally most of the people that came. And I think I will find that I have some good support from convention delegates out of the Fargo area. Doug will too, and that's to be expected. His residence is there, and he will have his supporters and his friends. But I welcome him to the race, and Rick as well, and we'll let the delegates of the state convention make their choice. But this is something I really enjoy. I enjoy the retail politics side of it, meeting people, and mostly listening to what it is they're concerned about. So he'll have his support in Fargo, no question about it. But I represented Grand Forks for 24 years in the legislature. I have good support up here. I'll have support in Bismarck. I think very strong support out of Bismarck, and I will have a lot of good support out in the western part of North Dakota as well. So I feel pretty good about our prospects. But there are 3 different segments to this election. There's one we're in now, which is the convention process, and that plays to the people who are the strongest party activists. Then there's the primary. That's step 2, and then of course the general election in November.
701-293-9000 if you got any comments or questions for the Attorney General. Of course, Wayne Stenehjem running for governor. 888-970-9329 is the toll-free number. You can also email me, talk@wday.com, or tweet me. The other day, and I guess I wrote an article on this because I feel like it's kind of a big shift for North Dakota, but every Republican governor in this race, every Republican candidate in the gubernatorial race is on the record saying that they support gay marriage. Now, is that something new for you? Is that something that you have felt for a while?
I think it really is, Rob. Who would ever have thought that people's perceptions and views on this topic would change as fast as it has? I mean, it's been 10, 15 years at the most that we have seen the kind of dramatic shifts that you were talking about in your column. And now, of course, we have the Supreme Court who made their ruling that said that nationwide gay marriage is going to be recognized. And at this point, it just seems to me that we might as well realize that this is the new reality, and everybody's going to have to get used to it. And so that's the position that I have, and it looks like the other 2 as well are in the same situation.
Let's get to some calls. John from Moorhead, you're up. What's going on?
Well, I'm not actually from Moorhead. I'm in Moorhead today.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, the Attorney General is running for governor of North Dakota.
No, I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to hang up because I've got to drive this commercial vehicle I'm driving. And here's the thing that annoys me, Mr. Stenehjem. I am a North Dakota Class 2 concealed carry permit holder who is no longer allowed to carry in the state of Minnesota because I choose to not go through the added expense and headache of a Class 1 license. And I will tell you, I've been a shooter for well over 35 years, and I'd like to know if there's anything that you can do before you possibly become governor or after becoming governor to rectify this with the liberal nut job over here in Minnesota? Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you. Great question, and I'm happy to be able to address it because we have strived over many years to get reciprocity with the state of Minnesota for concealed weapons licenses. In fact, just before Governor Pawlenty left office, he promised me, when I met with him, and he promised me that he would make sure that we got reciprocity with Minnesota. He didn't actually follow through with that, which was a disappointment for me. The major reason that we have Class 1 and Class 2 concealed weapons licenses in North Dakota was for the specific reason of maximizing the number of states that recognize our license. And Minnesota is chief among them because of all the number of people that live across the North Dakota-Minnesota border. If we eliminated the Class 1 license and their requirements, we would go back the way that we were, and we would not have reciprocity with Minnesota. So he would be in the same position that he is. Now, North Dakota is the leading state for recognition of our licenses elsewhere. We are at 37 right now, and it used to be Utah that was kind of the place where people wanted to go and get their license for maximum reciprocity. Now it's North Dakota. So that's the reason that we adopted that Class 1 with the additional stringent requirements for the actual shooting tests and so forth. It was only, or largely, so we can get reciprocity with Minnesota. If we were to back off and go back to the way that we were, we would most certainly not have the option to have reciprocity with Minnesota like we now have.
Welcome back. Rob Port in for Jay Thomas, 701-293-9000. Your call-in number, 888-970-9329. Mike from Rural Cass dropped off. Mike, you want to call back in? We can certainly take your calls. You want to call right now? Attorney General Wayne Stenehjem, of course, running for governor, is on the program. Oh, Mike's back. All right. Well, let's go straight to Mike from rural Cass County. You're on with the Attorney General. What's your question?
Yeah, I've been farming my whole life, and we always hear about North Dakota and the oil, but my family homesteaded here, in the 1890s, and what are we doing going forward to protect agriculture and just, we own the land and we need to take care of it, but it seems like people think they know more than us, and if you're elected governor, what can you do to help us own our land?
Well, that's a huge question, and happy to answer it. We've got, as we all recognize, lots going on here in North Dakota, both with the agriculture sector, with energy, with high tech, with all the things that are happening. But agriculture is the number one industry in North Dakota. It always will be, and I think that's entirely appropriate. Now, I don't know what specifically the caller might be talking about, but there are lots of things that we have utilized to assist farmers over the years, both beginning farmers and through the Bank of North Dakota and the programs that exist there to help with that. We're constantly struggling, of course, against the overreach of the federal government, the Environmental Protection Agency that has adopted that entirely obnoxious Waters of the U.S. rule that we are litigating at this very minute and actually seeing success on. We also are engaged in really what I think is a very critical thing, and that is recognizing. Hello?
Yeah, no, we're here. Sorry, Mike dropped off.
Busy signal there. Yeah. Recognizing, North Dakota is a part of the global economy now, and that means that we need to make sure we're marketing our farm products internationally. There are many, many countries that are buying wheat from the North Dakota Mill and Elevator, that are buying farm commodities directly from us here in North Dakota. We need to make sure that we're utilizing everything that we can here in North Dakota to do what we do best, and that is to help feed a hungry world. And we're doing a very good job on all of those things. And I think we need to do everything we can to make sure we're continuing to support our ag sector here in North Dakota in a lot of different ways.
701-293-9000. You want to join the program, 888-970-9329. I had a quick question about, the state's finances. We obviously getting some news out of the OMB. We're going to be getting a new revenue forecast. It sure sounds like that's going to kick in some across-the-board budget cuts. Some lawmakers want to go a little deeper. It's also probably going to make us have to dip into some reserve funds. Mr. Burgum was on another radio program recently, in fact today, and he was talking about the oil tax reform. And he said he liked that we got rid of the trigger, but we shouldn't have lowered the rate because we're just giving an extra $700,000 a day to the oil industry. What do you make of that? I mean, did you support that reform to the oil tax?
I did, and I think that it made sense. That was the compromise. If we had not adopted, if the legislature had not adopted the legislation that it did, the cost to the state of North Dakota would have been enormous in lost tax revenue. And so instead, they got rid of the trigger that would have lowered the price by the tax that was assessed by about half, and in exchange for that, it was agreed that there would be a flat rate and that it would be uniform, and that really was more what the industry wanted than anything, to just make sure that there was certainty. And so I did support that, and I think that it was very lucky for state finances that happened, because if that bill had not passed, the difficulties we're going to see going forward would have been much worse. Now, and to touch on the budget just for a minute, if I could, of course,
sure.
The first thing that has to happen is that there will be an allotment when this new Moody's Analytics analysis comes out. There will be an allotment that every state agency has to reduce by 2.5% its general fund budget. That affects my office as well, and we're ready to meet that challenge. After that, then it's possible to dip into those savings accounts. Now, the legislature did some very wise things. They spent a good amount of money on one-time funding for badly needed infrastructure and other projects, gave tax relief, and then set aside money in these savings accounts that are available for a rainy day like we have now. I am concerned that even after we dip into those savings accounts, we may have to ask some state agencies to make even further cuts, and then looking forward into the next budgeting cycle, we're going to have to realize that it's very likely that every agency will submit a budget that is at a 95% or some percentage of what their current budget is looking forward, until we get to the point where the price of farm commodities and oil goes back up. And I think most people recognize that is exactly what will happen, because it always does. Their pipeline companies aren't coming in here and investing billions of dollars to get our product out of North Dakota if they don't think that there's a market and that they will make a profit when they do that. And so I think the long-term future of North Dakota is a very optimistic one, but we are going to have some very critical, difficult decisions to make on the budget in order to do what every family has to do and what the Constitution requires, and that is to make sure we balance our budget, fund our priorities, but make cuts where we have to.
And I just wanted to get back to what Mr. Berger was saying, because he was saying he was okay with the trigger, and obviously getting rid of the trigger has put us in a situation where we didn't see the rates go down, and that, of course, has kept revenue more stable, as you said. What he said he was opposing, though, was the rate reduction, where we brought the rate down. I believe it's at 10% now, given oil prices.
Right.
And I think the effect, it was 11.5%. I think the effective rate was 11% before. He's saying
and it will be at 11 depending on what the price of oil is. But that was the compromise. Why get rid of? I guess you could just get rid of the trigger, which would have resulted in in effect a tax increase. I think that the position that the legislature took was a very wise one, to say, let's get rid of the trigger. We will level out the tax on oil in North Dakota going forward, not have these roller coaster tax rates that are in existence depending on the price of oil. But in exchange for that, a slight reduction in the tax rate. And the net result of getting that legislation passed is that the state budget from the tax that we do realize did not take a tremendous hit that we would have seen.
What do you make of his assertion that lowering the tax rate is somehow the state giving money? I never like that when people talk about it that way, as though it's the state's money to begin with, and they're giving us a gift by allowing us to keep more of our own money. I never like it when politicians. What's your reaction when you hear that?
Well, and please don't ask me to react to a comment from somebody that I didn't hear. But my own view is we need to make sure that we have a fair and reasonable tax rate because it's a resource, and I think that the state has imposed tax on that since day one. It needs to be at a reasonable rate that helps us to meet some of the challenges that we have here in North Dakota without disincentivizing production of energy in our state.
Mr. Stenehjem, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Attorney
Anytime,
General,
Rob, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Attorney General Wayne Stenehjem, of course, running for governor. Your calls and comments coming up straight ahead. I'm Rob Borden for Jay Thomas. Don't go away.